Okay, it's time to start. Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar organized by think tank Magma in cooperation, tight cooperation I should say, with Helsinki Times. My name is Nils-Erik Forsgård and I am the director of Magma. I will soon introduce to you a colleague, researcher Kaisa Kepsu at Magma, who will introduce the results of the survey that we have conducted throughout the spring. I will also introduce now immediately, I think is the best thing to do, two other speakers today or commentators today, namely Alexis Kouros, who is the chief editor-in-chief of Helsinki Times, and Liisa Shimmi, who is a laboratory technician at the University of Helsinki. So welcome everyone once again. Before I give the word and the microphone, hand over the microphone to my colleague Kaisa Kepsu, I would like to say just a few brief words on the topic that we are going to discuss today. We are going to talk about migration. We are going to talk about immigration, mainly perhaps, and partly also about integration, I would think, in the following discussion that we will have. I do not know if you noticed that the population of Finland grew by approximately 6,000 people. That was the net number, 6,000 people in the time period January till April this year. The majority, the absolute majority of this net growth in Finland was due and is due to immigration, to people coming from other countries, settling in Finland for a shorter or a longer time period. This is a very important fact, in other words. This is a very important immigration. The Finnish development, could be said, the Finnish demographic development, it could be said, rests on the shoulders of people coming from other countries to Finland. As inbred Finns, we are, or at least we should be, I think, quite grateful of this input to the total population. Every newcomer to this country should be treated with dignity, due dignity and respect. At the same time, I think it's also necessary to say, or perhaps we should ask ourselves this question: what do the newcomers know about Finland when they arrive? Do they know anything about Finland? What do they know about the country they have arrived in? I think that's a very important question. Are they aware of the traditions, the culture, the languages, the identity of the Finns, Swedish-speaking and Finnish-speaking Finns, and of course also the Sami population? I think this is an important question to pose. The survey that we have conducted together with Helsinki Times now this spring puts focus on immigrants. It puts focus on their relationship to or knowledge of the Swedish-speaking language and the Swedish-speaking culture. We find this very necessary to do. Knowledge, as we all know, is a key factor when it comes to getting to know a new country, when it comes to understanding a new country, and the people living in it, of course, too. Already in 2009, Magma, together with Helsinki Times, conducted a similar survey. It went out via the website of Helsinki Times, also then, and resulted in 500 plus answers. One of the striking results of that survey, or in that survey, was the fact that particularly people coming from Asia and India seemed, China perhaps then also in particular, seemed to have quite a large interest in the Swedish language in Finland and the Swedish-speaking population residing or living in Finland. If this is the case also now, yeah, well, that's one of the questions that we will soon answer. or you will soon get an answer to this question, and I will therefore hand over the microphone and the word to my esteemed colleague, Kaisa Kepsu, who is a researcher at think tank Magma. Kaisa, please.
Thank you very much, my esteemed colleague Niels-Erik. Immigration has been on the rise, and the share of the foreign-born population in Finland has been risen to record high levels, actually in all the Nordic countries. And immigrants have a variety of motives of coming to Finland and actually come all over the world. And perhaps contrary to the general perception, immigration from so-called north-north migration is actually more common than immigration from countries further away. So if we look at the share of the foreign language speakers in Finland compared to the Swedish speakers, this figure here will show that the share of foreign language speakers have passed the share of Swedish speakers in about 10 years ago. And against this background, therefore, it's relevant to spend the next 15 minutes on looking at how this admittedly quite varied group feels about the bilingual status of Finland and the Swedish language and culture. So first, a few words about the survey. We conducted a web-based open survey in April and May this year among the readers of Helsinki Times. And it was targeted to individuals residing in Finland and born outside Finland, and also whose mother tongue is other than Finnish, Swedish, or Sami. And this is not a representative sample in the case of in an academic sense because of the open survey and that the readers of Helsinki Times were the main group. Helsinki Times has about a few 100,000 unique hits every month, so the reach is quite wide. But it's important to remember this when studying the results. And there were some people responding to the survey who were born in Finland, and that might be from different reasons. They might have resided their whole lives in another country and consider themselves as immigrants, but they are still born in Finland. Nevertheless, they were omitted from the research later on. You can have a look at the previous study from 2009 on our Magma website, and I will refer to some of the results from the previous study also here along the way. So, when taking the pulse of the foreign language community's sentiments, first we need to look a little bit about the respondents, who they were, and how many people responded. A little bit more than 500 respondents from 83 different countries of origin, 60 languages as mother tongue among the respondents. Majority from the Helsinki metropolitan area, actually about the same share as the foreign-born population lives in Finland. And 45% have lived less than 5 years in Finland. If we compare to the respondent group from 2009, you can see that it's quite similar. In some respects, it differs, for example, in the fact that this year there are fewer people who have lived longer in Finland. And as you can see, 71% in 2009 had stayed in Finland less than 5 years. Also, if we look at gender composition and age, there's a predominance of men among the respondents, and also very high education level among the respondents. 74% have a university degree. And compared to 2009, if we summarize, we can see that this time we had a little bit more men, and they were younger. They were older this time around, and this is also why there are less students among the respondents. And also they have lived longer in Finland than last time, but quite similar in any case. If we look at the countries where these respondents come from, 83 countries, 44% originate in European countries, 23 Asia, and 17% in North America. If we look at individual countries where they come from, the biggest groups, respondent groups, are from the USA, the UK, India, Germany, Russia, Finland, Canada, China, and the Netherlands. And if we look then at the language they speak, 60 languages as mother tongue were among the respondents, and English is the nominating group. 34% spoke English as their mother tongue. Other large languages, Spanish, German, Russian, Arabic, and so on. So it needs to be said that there's a overrepresentation of Anglo-American respondents, and that is perhaps also due to the fact that Helsinki Times is an English-speaking magazine. Okay, if we look at some of the results then. Why did these people move to Finland, we asked. And here you can see that personal or family reasons dominate. 37% stated that as the main reason. You could only choose one reason here, and that's of course kind of restricting, but we wanted to see the first reason. 27% to work, 23% to study, 2% as asylum seekers or refugees. Very similar reasons as in 2009. This time around, there are a little bit higher share of people moving in that had for family reasons. 11% stated other reasons for moving into Finland. Here's a few of those open responses that they listed, and interestingly, there are a few comments about the Nordic countries and the Nordic progressiveness and a desire to live in the Nordic countries. So a few comments on that. Okay, language skills is what we asked first of all. And if we look at the respondents' language skill levels, first Finnish. 61% say that their level of Finnish is poor or that they don't know any Finnish. About the same as in 2009, a little bit higher. 27% assess their levels as medium, and 11% as good or excellent. A little lower share than in 2009. Then Swedish. 79%, so a little bit more than the share that commented that they didn't know or poor Finnish. Say that the 79% say that the level of Swedish is poor, or that they don't know any Swedish. And that was a little bit lower than in the survey 10 years ago. 11% estimated to be good or excellent. Then also 30% state that they have learned or partly have learned Swedish while they have been in Finland. We also had a question or a statement on that stated, I think that Swedish would be easier to learn for me than Finnish, is a statement that we hear a lot, and we wanted to see if that was agreed on, and yes, 82% partly or strongly agreed with that statement. And here is one commentary on that issue. Swedish is an easy language compared to Finnish, and it's very useful if you plan to move to any Nordic countries, as you can manage with Swedish easily. Most immigrants in Finland choose Swedish language to pass YKI exam for getting Finnish citizenship. Whoever wants to settle in Finland will choose Finnish language as they want to integrate with society. In Finland, you can choose Swedish as your first integration language in bilingual municipalities if you choose to do so. And we asked if the respondents knew about that fact. And 70%, almost 70%, said that they were aware of that fact. And if we look at countries of origin, this fact was best known from migrants from North America, Africa, and Asia. One comment, again from the open part in the survey. Swedish language is not promoted well enough among immigrants. I wish I knew when I moved to Finland that Swedish was an available language option for getting Finnish citizenship. Then, to the knowledge of the Swedish-speaking culture in Finland. What did the respondents know about that? And when assessing the results, we have come to the conclusion that the levels of awareness is strong. And these are a few examples. 85% knew already when they moved to Finland that there is more than one official language in Finland. A little bit more than in 2009. And then about 2/3 of the respondents knew or guessed. We had a multiple choice question on the share of Swedish-speaking population and the year in which Finland was a part of Sweden. And this was the correct answers were given by about 2/3 of the respondents. This was slightly lower than in 2009. And 43% of the respondents said that they don't think that they have sufficient knowledge about the Swedish language culture in Finland. Then moving on to attitudes towards the Swedish language and Swedish-speaking community, we had a few different questions there measuring that. And our conclusion is that attitudes in general are positive and are actually even more positive than they were in the survey in 2009. I have a few comparisons here with the data on Finnish speakers, the Finnish-speaking majority and their attitudes towards the Swedish-speaking minority. And those are here on the slides in blue color. Okay, 61% partly or strongly agrees with the claim that the Swedish language is an essential part of Finnish society. And this was almost 15 percentage points higher than in 2009. Very similar figures as the Finnish speakers had in the survey from 2017. 68% would like to have more contact with Swedish speakers in Finland, as opposed to 42% of the majority Finnish speakers. And when asking if they would consider putting their children in a Swedish-speaking kindergarten or a school, only 30% partly or strongly disagreed with that fact. The rest were positive or couldn't say. That's also very similar to the results from the Finnish speakers. Then we asked if they have contact with Swedish speakers in Finland, and actually the figures were quite high. 65% have friends in Finland who speak Swedish as their mother tongue. And this is notably high if you compare to the Finnish speakers, who stated that 60% have friends, relatives or colleagues among the Swedish speakers. If we look at the attitude about the statement, the Swedish language is an essential part of Finnish society, which we asked about, the result was 61% partly or strongly agrees. And I was looking at the different groups, if there were any differences or in the perceptions, and actually there are not that much difference between men or women or educated or less educated people, or for example age group. When we look at countries of origin, you could see that migrants originating in Africa had the most positive attitudes, about 10 percentage points higher than the general level. Here's another comment from the survey. I consider that the Swedish language is a distinct, enriching aspect to Finland's culture, just as the Welsh language, until relatively recently, did this become part of the school curriculum in Britain. If you kill a language, you kill a culture. Another one. Swedish-speaking Finns are a part of Finland and will always be. However, students should have a choice to decide to learn Swedish or another language at school. This person's comment. Then we asked about the desire or eagerness to learn Swedish or learn better Swedish, and the results were that 72% strongly or partly agree with the fact that they would like to learn better Swedish. And here you could see a strong correlation with age, and quite naturally younger people were more positive towards learning Swedish. And also, as the age matters, also it's understandable that students were more positive to learning Swedish, and also unemployed and self-employed respondents were most positive towards learning Swedish. Some comments on learning Swedish. I would certainly learn Swedish as a part of integration in Finnish society, because I am still not integrated and I rely on English language for everyday life. I think it would be nice if immigrants who reside in Finland has the access to free Swedish course as well, along with Finnish course, but perhaps I am not aware of its availability. This person answers, comments, I would like to highlight that I always care about a country's language when considering visiting or moving to it. That said, I would never focus on Swedish over Finnish by respect to the country and the people who live in it. I believe that it's my responsibility to care and learn how to better communicate with a society that embraces me. Therefore, I should definitely learn Finnish. Finally, we had a lot of open comments, and you can read more of them in the results that are uploaded on the Magma website. But I highlight here a few of those comments that perhaps could be taken up later on in the discussion after the presentation. One comment is, I know TE-toimisto doesn't allow or encourage people to take kotoutumiskoulutus, integration education in Swedish. Generally noticed the mood is against use of Swedish in language in Uusimaa, what I witnessed in public places. Another comment is, there is no need for Swedish as a language in Finland. English should be spoken as the main language. Imagine how much easier life would be and how many more qualified workforce would come to Finland. I know many who have avoided coming here because of the language. And the final two comments. For me, coming from Indo-European language family culture, Swedish seems like a much better language to study. Finnish has been very difficult for me, and also because people discourage me to study in Swedish, thinking that I will not get any work in Finland if I speak Swedish without Finnish. If I had a choice, I would study Swedish. Another comment still on the labor situation or the work situation. I strongly feel that the Swedish-speaking community is decreasing due to lack of integration and impossibility to rely on Swedish-only work. I happen to know foreigners that have learned Swedish for their citizen examination, but cannot work in their sectors with only Swedish knowledge. A lot of industries require Finnish. And with those comments, I say thank you and remind you that the results are available on Magma's website. And then I give over the floor to Alexis Kouros, Editor-in-Chief for Helsinki Times. Thank you.
Thank you. Helsinki Times was established in 2007. Finland for expats and immigrants has had traditionally very few sources of information, and Helsinki Times was determined to change that, to bring more news and information to the expat community. When we started Helsinki Times, we had a weekly print edition and a daily online edition. Now the print edition is not existing anymore because of the everything going to digital, but online Helsinki Times is the only and the first English language source of news for expats and immigrants. Our site has more than 500,000 visitors every month, and we have always been searching for ways of having the communication being both ways. Also hearing more about our readers' opinions and what they think about different topics in Finland. And surveys have been a very good way of doing that. We are happy to have had several successful surveys. We used to conduct a survey every year about our readers, and as it was said before, we had a previous survey together with Magma about the attitudes of immigrants and expats towards the Swedish language and Swedish speakers in Finland, and also their knowledge about this topic. So why is this important? A lot of immigrants, when they come to Finland, they may not know about the bilinguality of the country, or if they know, their knowledge is very limited. On the other hand, the Swedish-speaking community has been very welcoming to expats and immigrants. If you look at the statistics, Finland has around 7% immigrants in general. Most of them have been gathering in the Uusimaa area, in the capital area, which is natural because there are more jobs here. And the percentage of immigrants in the capital area is a little bit more than 13%. But the place in Finland which has the highest percentage of immigrants is Åland, Ahvenanmaa. The only Swedish-speaking community island in Finland has over 15% of immigrants. And there are very interesting success stories, like the small community or city of Närpiö, Närpes, which is called the tomato capital of Finland. It has one of the highest percentages of immigrants in Finland. And the most common family name in Närpiö is Nguyen, a Vietnamese family name. This tells a lot about the possibility of integrating into the Swedish-speaking Finland and the welcoming attitude of the Swedish-speaking community towards expats and immigrants. So at the same time, we see that it's also important that the expats and immigrants have a similar positive attitude towards the Swedish-speaking community. Swedish is easy to learn if you speak English or German or any Germanic language. It's a small jump from there to learn Swedish. And a lot of people don't know that you can do your citizenship exams and other official issues in Swedish in Finland. Of course, you will need Finnish if you want to work in some sectors. But to be honest, a lot of sectors in Finland are using English as the main language at the moment. So in Helsinki Times, we have realized this value of cooperation between expats and immigrants and the Swedish-speaking community. And we think that if there is a Swedish a minority language in Finland which has all these rights and positions, legal positions, it makes it easier for other languages also to be respected. This is some important point for those who are critical towards the historical position of Swedish language in Finland, and they think that it could be a competitor to their own native cultures. It's the opposite. When the country is basically used to having a minority language and respect it, it's much easier to respect other minority languages as well. So we hope that this cooperation continues and we can give more knowledge on the on Finland in general and also on minorities, cultural, historical minorities like the Swedish-speaking and the Sami and others. And now we have Lisa Shimmi, who is one of the respondents of the survey, and she is going to talk about her experience in Finland and knowledge of the minorities and Swedish language in Finland. Thank you, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Shimmi. I'm Japanese. I have lived here for 15 years with my Japanese family. Before we moved to Finland, we were living in America. Then we Googled what kind of Finland is, and we figured out Finland has a very cold winter, very dark time, but summertime is so brilliant. And then we Googled that Finland has 2 languages, Finnish and Swedish, but some website says Finland, Finnish people speak mostly Finnish, and foreigners do not need to speak Swedish. That's why we didn't prepare Swedish language at all. And after we began to work at the University of Helsinki, we were so surprised that all the buildings were written both languages of Finnish and Swedish, even though not many people are speaking Swedish. When we came here 15 years ago, not many information were written in English, so I really would like to have English information more. And year by year, English information is increasing in town, at the university, in neighbors also. And then compared with my experience in Japan and America, the countries use only 1 language, but here in Finland, 2 languages. So it's very interesting, because if you get information in email or letter, the information is so long because of 2 languages, and sometimes 3 languages. So I thought it's very interesting. Then, in my workplace, previously we had 2 Swedish-speaking Finnish workmates, and then they speak fluent English, so stunning fluent. Then I asked them why. Then they answered, because Swedish and English are kind of similar, so it's very easy. But somehow they never taught us Swedish, unfortunately. So that's why I didn't have any chance to speak Swedish. And we took some Finnish courses at the University of Helsinki, but Finnish was really, really difficult. And even now, I don't understand everything. Probably basic level, I guess, after living in here for 15 years. Then we have 2 kids born in here, and 14 years old and 10. And the older one, 14 years old, she speaks some Swedish because she learned 2 years Swedish at school. But she said that she doesn't use Swedish in a daily life because no one in Finland were speaking. No one means in her school. And whenever we travel to Stockholm, she translated Swedish to us. So, yeah, but sometimes we understand because some words are kind of similar to English. And my impression to Swedish language is, yeah, so it's sometimes easy to understand compared to Finnish language, but we don't have enough time to study Swedish, so I have never tried it. But as an immigrant here, I would like to have more English information rather than Swedish. Sorry. Yeah, this is my impression. Thank you.
So we will have a short panel discussion now with the people that have given us some introductory comments, and we will try to keep the social distancing alive here. So that's why we are sitting slightly apart. We are not really afraid of each other, but we want to follow the rules. So I would say that one of the conclusions of these introductions now would be that Google is a very useful tool when it comes to migration, or that's my impression of your introduction, at least, Lisa. But Alexis, I would perhaps ask or pose the first question to you regarding the survey now that has been done. It seems to me that the respondents are slightly elder now than in 2009. The age group, how shall I say? They are not retired, but they are slightly elder anyway. Why is this so? What is your impression? Why are the immigrants in Finland getting older? I thought it would be kind of young people coming to Finland.
That's a very good question. Actually, we were discussing this with Kaisa, and one of the thoughts that came to us was that one reason could be that when we started in 2007, we gathered a lot of readers and followers, and probably some of these people have stayed with us for all this time, and they are more active. I think that based on other surveys we have done on our readership, yes, we do have quite a lot of young readers as well. I think maybe they are not as active and as in the a little bit more older people. Nowadays they have so many both sources of digital entertainment and information, and also they are more active outdoors and so on. So
but that is the readership of Helsinki Times. But if we kind of try to broaden the spectre, I guess you meet a lot of people, immigrants and people that have come from other countries to Finland. Is your impression also that these people are elderly, that they are not in their 30s or so, and rather in their 50s or 60s?
No, I don't think so. I think that a lot of recent immigration has been on the younger side. And there is a lot of companies who need IT specialists, for example, other professions who they have shortage of specialists, and they bring them from outside. And then if you look at the asylum seekers, they are mostly in their 20s. So I wouldn't say, but of course one could look at the statistics of the Statistics Finland and get the.
Sure. Do you have any picture of the age median of the immigrants in Finland?
No, I haven't. I haven't really looked at that issue. But regarding the origin of the respondents, as I stated earlier, that there is a predominance or overrepresentation of Anglo-Saxon respondents, and that is. I looked at what countries most of the immigrants or foreign-based population living in Finland are coming from, and UK and USA is not among the top countries there. So there we see that it's probably a little bit more of a expatriate respondent group, expats, that has responded as compared to.
Does this affect the results, the kind of from a scientific point of view? What would the conclusion be?
Yes, I believe that it does, at least when it comes to the knowledge part of what they know about Finland's bilingualism and the Swedish-speaking group, because of as I noted there, as we noted, they are highly educated, and most of them are working or students. So I believe that affects positively the knowledge of Finland and bilingualism.
Sure. Lisa, what is your impression of fellow immigrants to Finland? Are they young or are they old? What is the age understanding? How do you see this issue? And another question also at the same time. You said that you are an immigrant, but do you also consider yourself to belonging to a minority in Finland somehow?
Yeah, so the first question of the age group, I think I have met lots of working age people, so not so young, not so old, like 20, 30, 40, something like that. Then, because I have lived here for a long time, so and then I have so many Finnish people, so I think I feel I'm a part of Finnish society now. But for the first 5 years, I was feeling a little bit sad because I didn't understand Finnish so well. So I was always feeling like a foreigner. But after I had, I acquired some good friends, then somehow suddenly, my world, turned into bigger. Then after that, it's okay. But sometimes I hear foreigners in Finland feel a little bit lonely because the language is so difficult to catch up. Then the information was not so available in English.
Do you consider yourself belonging to a minority in Finland?
Yes, of course, because I'm Japanese and.
So there is a Japanese minority in Finland, and you feel strongly you belong to them.
Yes.
Do you have lots of activities? You meet often and so on?
Yeah, when my kids were younger, so we had some activities for Japanese people. But after my kids grown up, then, so nowadays I don't feel so much minority anymore. Yeah, maybe half and half, I guess.
The one observation in this survey now is that the attitudes towards the Swedish language and the Swedish-speaking culture in Finland seem to be more positive now than in 2009. And my question, of course, would be, why is this so? What do you think, Alexis Kouros and Kaisa Kepsu at Magma, Alexis Kouros, editor-in-chief at Helsinki Times, what is your impression? I mean, for instance, 2009, we were in the middle of a financial crisis, basically. And now, 2020, we are in the middle of a corona crisis. So the situations are the circumstances are kind of slightly similar. And still, we see quite a huge increase in, when it comes to the positive attitude. So what might this be due to? This is a question to you all. Alexis, if you start.
Well, I think that as you mentioned when you started with Google, people have more sources of information, even though 2009 is not far far back, but now it has even exponentially increased. The way people communicate to each other, the way they get knowledge about the environment they are living in, with all these social media activities and TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, you name it. There are so many, WhatsApp, and there are so many new channels of knowing more about your environment. And one of the results was also that a lot of these immigrants, they did have physical, real contact with Swedish speakers. And my own experience is, and I understood from the survey that many other people have the same experience, expats, that the Swedish speakers are more extrovert, they are more social, probably because of being themselves a minority, and they they are more open and easier to talk to. And I think this the sum of all these could somehow explain. I don't know what Kaisa.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that same issue that you noted about the how much contact they had with actual contact with Swedish speakers, and I found that really high, the number that about more than 65% had a friend, at least one friend. So that probably.
But is this just coincidence, or what do you say, Kaisa?
I'm perhaps not the right person to answer that, but maybe Lisa has a comment
From
on
a
that.
statistical point
Yeah,
of
from a
view
statistical point of view, yeah, of course. I don't think it's a coincidence. It might also be due to the fact that a lot of the foreign language community lives in Helsinki and on the coast, and the cities on the coast, and they are also confronted with Swedish and Swedish-speaking groups, and some of the respondents also stated that they had done integration, the language in education in Swedish.
What is your impression, Lisa? You have many Swedish-speaking friends?
Yeah, some. Yeah, for example, I had 2 co-workers before,
Yes.
then maybe 3 Swedish-speaking people, Swedish-speaking friends. Yeah, but in my opinion, I don't feel so extrovert. So I don't.
You
Yeah.
don't feel extrovert, or they?
No,
You.
I don't feel any distinguish between Finnish-speaking people and Swedish-speaking people.
Yeah, well, not all the people are the same. That's true. Kaisa, you have analyzed this survey now and looked at it and turned around and everything. Checked it from bottom up. What is the overarching conclusion? Is there a striking element in this survey something you noticed that should be mentioned?
I think you were touching upon that. I was surprised that the attitudes are as positive to the bilingualism and Swedish-speaking groups. I think that's the overall conclusion, and also a willingness to learn Swedish or learn some Swedish. It might have something to do with of course, immigrants are more international, are more confronted with different languages, and are more positive towards languages in general, and that's in that sense natural. Yeah, so I think that was the key finding in the result.
Alexis, what's your impression?
I think that's a really important factor that should be really used and built upon by the Swedish-speaking community and Finland in general, because it's the attitude is positive, but on the other hand, as we saw in the comments, there are no possibilities. If people want to integrate in Swedish, the TE-toimisto tells them that no, don't do that because it's not good for you, or it's not possible, or so on. So I think that this means that there should be more opportunities and possibilities produced for people to get more hands-on contact with the Swedish language.
I mean, that would have been perhaps my next question also. What to do now with this information that we have received through this survey? What is the conclusion, so to say? What can be done? We know, I mean, from before that lack of information seems quite widespread. You know, people coming to Finland don't necessarily get the information they need in order to integrate in Swedish. We also know that many instances do not tell people intentionally, do not tell them to integrate in Swedish because that's a language that might not be so useful or so, or might not work in the working environment. It might not function, and so on and so forth. We know these problems, but so how do we take the next step? What can be done? What is the next move?
Well, I think one of the issues that I have noticed myself and I have been critical to is that the Swedish-speaking instances, institutions, NGOs, you name it, whatever in Finland exists, they are, of course, for a reason. They are very attached to the Swedish language, and all of their communication is in Swedish. You go to the websites of Kulturfonden or other NGOs, Folkhälsan, or there is a lot of information in Swedish, and when you go to the English side, it's just one page of what it's all about. And it's the same with the Finnish. Of course, I understand that the Swedish-speaking community wants to emphasize the use of the language, but then it leaves out a gateway, which could be very useful. If there was more information in English, then that would be a gateway for people to come in, learn more, and maybe later also learn Swedish.
Yeah, I think that's quite a decent observation. I mean, in the sense that small steps and then move on. And the English language, as Lisa Schimme also indicated in your comments, is of course the perhaps foremost language of integration after all. But some people want more. Some people want Finnish. Some people want Swedish. And these opportunities should be given to these people. What do you say, Kaisa, on this topic?
Well, I think at least from the survey it was clear that there is interest in learning Swedish, of course, and they should be offered possibility to integrate in Swedish when possible, or at least offer possibility perhaps even to integrate in two languages if the person so wants to. Of course, I know it's not problem-free if you don't learn the Finnish language, but also it offers many advantages getting into the local community, and that also promotes integration very, very strongly. What I think it's interesting also in the future, because Magma has done research also on young people's language use, and we can see how English comes into play also among the Finnish and Swedish speakers more often. And the question is how will the labor market change in Finland also? Will we be more willing to not demand such high levels of Finnish for people coming into the labor market? And that perhaps also works in the advantage of Swedish, that you don't have to use so much Finnish.
I think that is already happening and has happened. I have seen and heard and experienced so many working environments that the language is now English. And even in the service industry, because of lack of shortage of working force, you go to a restaurant and the waiter or waitress doesn't speak Finnish, and it's only, and people have accepted that and are accepting it even more. And cities like Espoo, they have officially said, okay, English is one of the official languages. So I'm certain that this emphasis on the Finnish language is already fading out, because the world has changed. And if you want people to come here and work, if you want IT people to come here, they have a family. They are not always one person, and for all of them to start learning, if you put such a huge obstacle, because Finnish is not an easy language, in front of them, then they will go somewhere else.
This is an interesting comment, I think, and this will be the final now input and the final question also on my behalf. We know that Swedish is a very useful language also in a Nordic context. You can get by on Swedish almost in every Nordic country. Sometimes with a little humor, but still, you can do it, and it's very useful not only in Finland but in all the other Nordic countries. This is something also perhaps that should be stressed. At the same time, there is a risk, of course, an implicit risk in this, namely people learning Swedish in Finland, realizing that the job market is perhaps not big enough here for someone with Swedish and English, and then, of course, immediately moving to Sweden, Norway, Denmark. Do you see this risk, Alexis? Have you thought about it?
I wouldn't be worried about that. It's I have because of Helsinki Times, I have in constant contact with the expat community, and the things which are important for them are really, it's because they can do their work in English anywhere they go, but it's important for them that there's a healthy community, safety. It's health care. Education, a lot of nature, a lot of things. People who come to Finland, work may be the reason they come, but a lot of other issues motivate them. And if the working environment is good, if their salaries is good, and if their family is happy, they wouldn't just move because of one factor that there is. So I think that cause a problem.
Okay, well spoken. Kaisa, and then Lisa.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, it's you can state it as a risk, but you can also say it's a possibility for these people to have more options open, and also the Swedish language. I mean, because of our economies are so integrated in our countries, with Finland and Sweden especially, there's other possibilities than to move to Sweden. You can work like on distance or commute even to Sweden, and there are companies that are very oriented towards Sweden, and that's also more options there.
Yeah, people are really mobile. They move and they go, and they could go anywhere else. I know a lot of people who went to Germany, to UK, to USA. They go for work. If they get a better offer somewhere, they do go.
You, Lisa, want to say something on this topic also?
Yeah, so many people say that if you want to keep Finnish work, then it's better to choose Finnish instead of Swedish. But if you prefer to go out to other Nordic countries, better to study Swedish. So, yeah.
Yes, there are many dimensions to this whole issue, and I think that considering the growth of immigration, the growing of immigration to Finland, this is an issue that should be handled. It should be taken care of. It should be discussed. Perhaps there is no final solution to it, so to say, but still we should discuss it, and we will, I'm sure, return to the topic in a near future also at Think Tank Magma. I would like to thank you all for participating in this event. Alexis Kouros, Editor-in-Chief of Helsinki Times. Lisa Shimmi, Laboratory Technician at the University of Helsinki, thank you. And my colleague Kaisa Kepsu, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope you'll have a nice day. Bye.